It's that time, the Roadkill Garage zip tie moment. Here's the thing, MSD distributors, they all plug in the same way. This is super common connection. Now really, there isn't a huge problem with them falling apart, but I always like to just absolutely make sure. So you can slip the zip tie between these two wires, and then between these two wires, and bring it up. And that thing is never falling apart. Like if you have an off-road vehicle, or if you're worried about water, or if you don't want that vibrating loose, do that on both sides. And this has been for demonstration purposes only, because were I doing this in the real world, I would be hiding the tab underneath my routing so you wouldn't see it. And that has been your Roadkill Garage zip tie moment.
This is gonna be your Roadkill Garage zip tie moment. Do you remember the Cheap Thrills dart? Way back in the early 90s, I became famous for using hose clamps to tie the extension housing of my 68 Dart to the transmission crossmember. The problem with this particular Challenger is that the bolt holes are completely stripped in the extension housing and I can't bolt them out on. So we're gonna go to new levels with these super heavy duty zip ties and find out if they, in fact, have the power to hold a torque flight to the crossmember. Keeping in mind, of course, this is only temporary. So you can see right here how I have attached two zip ties together to make one longer one. That is like magic. Really, when you're tying your transmission to your crossmember with either hose clamps or zip ties, you want to create a nice X pattern to it. Wow, this is good stuff. You honestly cannot get this kind of thing on any other show. And thus ends your zip tie moment.
Ready for the zip tie tech tip? This is gonna be it. This one would seem to be rather intuitive, but I notice that people don't do it. So you put your zip tie on, you clip the tail with a set of dikes like that. You just created the most jagged, gashing edge you'll find anywhere on your car. That thing is sharp enough to literally cut to the bone. So what you would rather do is come in with what's called a set of flush cuts that will get really close and tight, and bam, look at that. Literally, death, life. It's as simple as that. Flush cuts, get yourself a set. This is a genuine piece of wiring that I pulled out of the Ford muscle truck, and you can see that somebody has held it together with little pieces of blue tape. I've seen examples of people taking like welding wire and twisting them together, all sorts of ways of holding wires neatly, and this is not one of them. Instead, of course, we're going to the zip tie, which is the little plastic thing that we use to wrap up these wires. And I'm really picky about how they're used. I've got a lot of tips on this, genuinely. First of all, I would consider this section right here pretty much done right. Couple reasons. The wires are neatly in order, they're nice and straight, the wire ties are evenly separated, and the tail end of them, the little block that hooks it all together, they're all lined up in a row, and so that when that's in the vehicle, I would be hiding that on the bottom side so that you can't see the little block. So that's a tip right there. What's the big fail right here? Well, as you know, it's the white zip tie. I've found that the white ones get really, really brittle really fast, more so than the black ones, so I am not a fan of the white zip tie. I used them in this particular example to show you, though, that using the smallest zip tie, the smallest width of zip tie that's available for your job will make the thing much, much neater. Also, check this out. I put these all together when the wires were in a straight line. And you can see when you do that, you can kind of bend the harness around a little bit. The wires deflect and get a little bit ugly, but look what happens over here. So I have zip tied this all together with the wires in a curved shape, and you can see that it looks more neat than if you take a straight section and try and bend it. But the bad news is watch what happens when I try and straighten out a section that I zip tied together while it was curved. All the wires get all wonky and ugly. So the lesson to learn from that is have your wires sort of draped in the shape that you want them to be in before you start zip tying them all together. If you're doing a harness like this, you can sort of lay it in the car and you can get all of the zip ties loose where you want them, and so the wires aren't all flailing apart, but then don't tighten them up until it's actually the shape you want, because otherwise you're gonna readjust that curve and all the wires are gonna separate and get ugly like that. Next example is this harness right here, where you can see it's in a nice straight line. I've got black zip ties this time. They're a little bit large. I do have the cubes lined up, but importantly, look how I have stacked all of the wires together. I'll literally go and put 2 wires side by side and then stack another 2 wires underneath it so that the wires are stacked like that. And it makes a nice little square. And what that does is it makes the wire run the full length of the harness so that you can actually see it. It makes it easier to troubleshoot. Also, if this was in practice inside the car and it was laying in the engine compartment, I would take the brightest colored wire, the one that is the most distracting, and I would put it on the bottom just so that it doesn't disturb the eye in the engine compartment. So that's sort of a picky thing, but look what happens over here if you don't do that. So these wires are not stacked neatly. They were just run together as a bunch and connected. And you can see they're sort of wrapped around each other and stuff. It does not look as neat and tidy as this section, and it's harder to troubleshoot.
And now for your Roadkill Garage zip tie moment. You know, most of the time we're using these on what look like a permanent kind of application, but the zip tie can be your little buddy down here holding something out of the way, like this drive shaft. It's directly in the path of our new rear end, so we can gang a couple of zip ties, hook it to the cross member through a handy bolt hole.
So what you're saying is zip tie your dangling junk out of the way.
Right. Temporarily tie that drive shaft up and out of the way, secured by zip ties. Now you're free to install your third member without fear of crashing into the drive shaft. And that was your Roadkill Garage zip tie moment. Up a bit, back, up.
It's the rainy and windy day Roadkill Garage zip tie moment. And this one is going to be do as I say, not as I do. Because see what I did is I completely mangled the fan shroud. It fell all apart while I was removing the water pump and everything. Now what you would normally do is take those 2 broken pieces of plastic, drill holes in them, and then use zip ties to hold it together. So there's how to repair your fan shroud with zip ties. I, however, am going with the gaff tape because I'm in the middle of like a field with no electricity and no drill and no time and no patience. Now, you've seen my trick where you can use zip ties to make spark plug wire separators, right? Like if you've got 4 wires like this, you put 1 zip tie this way and then 3 this way to keep the wires separate. Well, look at this modification of that idea. So these are 2 oil cooler lines, and he's got 1 zip tie running in through this piece of rubber tube before connecting it together to hold these 2 lines completely separate with that rubber spacer. I thought that was pretty trick. And when you can show me something about zip tie usage, you know that you've actually done something. So that's a quick Roadkill extra, but you had to see it. The engine is now flopping around in here so badly that the shift linkage is all bound up. And so we're gonna fix it at the side of the road with the ultimate Roadkill Garage zip tie moment. Check these out. Look at that. That is beef right there. And yes, we are gonna attempt to hold the engine in with zip ties. I know it seems ridiculous, but there's some slim chance it'll work. I'm doing this mostly for my own entertainment, honestly. Put half of them around the frame, and then the other half of them through these and through the alternator bracket.
And then cinch it up and it won't go anywhere.
Why would it?
No, those look pretty good.
Okay.
Have you even brought a flashlight?
Try to get it to go through here.
Where? I can't see.
Right here where my finger is.
I can't see your fingers.
See where I'm flexing it?
Oh, yeah, here. That was perfection.
Should I get it cinched over?
No, I wouldn't cinch it, just... Hey,
Is that David Fried Burger?
that's us.
Yeah?
What's happening?
Oh, man.
Roadkill fans have arrived. Maybe they would be willing to like install a motor mount for us. Hey, since you guys are fans, do you want to install this motor mount for us?
I was just
How's it
watching
going?
you, man.
Oh, really?
Awesome.
Cool. Thanks.
Oh, hey, what's up?
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, all right, Roadkill Garage.
That's us. Yep.
How you doing?
How's it going?
All right.
We're trying to fix our motor mount because the motor's flopping around so much the shift linkage is jacked up.
Yeah, that's cool.
See what we're fixing it with?
Yeah, zip ties, awesome.
Zip ties.
Yeah. What else?
Yep.
That's cool, man. I just met my heroes right
Oh,
now.
thanks.
That's awesome.
What gave us away? The wagon?
The wagon.
The wagon?
And I saw the sandals, dude. I was like, that's
Really?
That is David Freiberger, man. It's awesome.
That's me.
The sandals. I love that.
This is so cool, man. I was just at home watching you guys.
Oh, yeah?
Like, yeah.
That's
literally.
pretty weird.
Yeah, that's weird. It's like, this is insane, man. I love it.
Thanks a lot, dude.
Oh, right, yeah. You want it tighter than that to the frame rail, I would say.
Okay, Dulcich, who are you talking to?
Sorry. I don't know what got over me, actually. Carry on.
No, I need your opinion, just not your advice. This is all about doing the wrong thing the right way. If this works, you realize it's new levels.
Zip tie motor mount?
Oh, yeah, it's just, nobody does this.
Really, you're breaking new ground here?
Yeah. Functionally, we've got it down to where it needs to be. So we're gonna test the function right now. If they all break, I'm gonna cry. I'm starting to get a little choked up already. Oh,
Passes
it's
that
fixed.
test.
It's totally repaired.
Well, let me put it in gear. That's not bad.
Now I can tighten more. I think this is gonna prove the actual motor mount obsolete here in a moment.
Really?
Yeah. So what we're doing now is taking the loop of white zip ties and making them tighter by pinching the loop shut with the black zip ties. Just a little extra something here.
You're gonna triangulate it to
Yes.
the upper control arm?
Yep.
Oh, there's like a scorpion climbing up my leg here.
Is there?
No, I thought it was. Ready?
Yeah.
That's full
good.
torque.
That was pretty aggressive.
Yeah.
We're good to go.
Okay.
And there you have it. The greatest ever Roadkill Garage zip tie moment.
Here's a tech tip for you. If you forget your belt at the hotel room, a nice pair of zip ties will do you just as well. So, let's see. The thing about this is, make sure you go to the bathroom first because they're one-time use only. There we go. I made it a little too tight.